everyone, I'm Architect Doozer. Welcome to our display of Doozer magic. Carapin's fine, she's just leaning over here. I'll pick her on, there we go. And anyway, as you can tell, there's a little bit of magic here because we may be small, but we're mighty. And we're going to tell you all about it. So, that's enough of Architect for now. But as you can tell, he's being moved by remote control. This is called a Waldo. And this was actually, this technology was invented for the original series back in 1983 by a brilliant electrician named Faz Fazakis, who designed this entire system because they wanted to find a way for a puppeteer to be able to perform a really small character like the Doozers without shaking, without slipping, without if your thumb makes the wrong movement, oh no, it looks bad on camera. So he came up with this genius idea of using remote control. So inside of him, and Bobby will tell you much more about this because he's brilliant, there's a bunch of different servo motors inside of him that are working together, reading the signals off of this controller, this Waldo, kind of reading what these pentameters are doing, and translating it real time through the air to the RC. So what this does is, first of all, let us, as puppeteers, use a skill that we're really used to, right? I mean, this is how we perform most of the main characters, is with our hands inside of a puppet with this part of our bodies. So it feels very familiar and gives us the best performance, but also it makes these guys completely mobile. So we can put them inside of a vehicle, we can put them up on a cliff 50 feet away and still be able to perform them wherever we are. So it really makes their little world come to life. And you can see they have a lot of great motion for 6-inch tall little creatures. And we do have a few stick puppet versions of them when we need specific actions, but 90% of the time on screen you're seeing them, they are being driven by this RC system. This is Bobby Bennett, who won the Creature Shop Challenge. Yeah. He's an amazing designer and builder and fabricator, and Bobby was really in charge of the world of Doozers for the reboot of Fragglerock. Do you want to talk a little bit about what they're made of, how they're created?
Sure. So it is a reboot, so we wanted to make sure that we stayed as true to the original designs. These are kind of the original designs, but we wanted to update them. So I started, you can see over here, I designed them in the computer digitally. And here's some of the designs at the top. And then you can see where I kind of rendered the gloves and the hats and the pouches and things like that. And then we 3D print them. It's just easier to 3D print them than actually sculpt them, especially because they're so tiny.
How did they do back in the day? Because obviously 3D printing
They
didn't exist.
sculpted them by hand back in the day. Yeah. Once you have them sculpted, you make a mold of them, and we cast them out of foam latex. And it's basically makeup sponge material, same thing. And there's an outer mold and an inner mold so that we can control the thickness, because like Johnny was saying, on the inside there are tons of mechanisms.
What are you saying?
I'm sorry, his gizzards.
Because it's all alive. It's all alive.
And so you want just a shell of a skin so that you can fit all that in there.
Yes.
So you guys can feel like it's covered in baby powder. This is like one of the babies. So you can.
I'm not gonna lie, this is very awkward for me, Bobby. Keep talking. Very uncomfortable. What do you do once you've got those foam disturbing bodies? What happens then?
So then we do a process called flocking. Flocking is this material right here, and what you do is you put a glue on the foam, and you use static electricity to suck the fibers onto the skin. And you know, like when you're scared or your hair stands up on your arm, it does the same effect. So it'll stick out straight. What? So you get like a nice.
How are you as disturbed by this as I am?
So this is what the flock looks like. And it's just shredded synthetic material. And once it goes into the static electricity, it gets shot onto this, and then you have a nice little furry Doozer.
My
And the original Doozers, this was their little harness, and it was all cast out of foam latex and sculpted. For the new season, we kind of updated it so you can kind of see how it's just, you can do more with digital printing now. You can.
So that entire thing is made, right? Except for the strings for the most part.
Correct.
Digital printed, yeah.
And especially when you're doing such a high scale, like it's a massive amount of just stuff that you have to make for these. And using the computer and 3D printing, you can speed up your pipeline, I guess.
Yeah.
It would be very time consuming to actually make all this by hand. Whereas now, this is a great example. These are the little, what would you call this? Is there an official
That was a goo gun.
goo gun. A goo gun. But you can
Technical
see,
terms, you see.
this is what it looks like off the printer. And then once it's sanded and painted and all the bells and whistles, you have a perfect little glue gun. Glue gun?
Goo gun. And we really, for Bobby and his team, we really pushed on the reboot. We really wanted to take producers even further and give them, iPads, kind of things that lit up, and wanted them to have more technology and be able just to move more and do more. So there was an episode in the first season where they had this hat celebration, basically, and so Bobby was tasked with making every outrageous, ridiculous hat we could think of, like a chandelier hat and what else? There was like a feather, like a Mardi Gras hat. There was
The strawberry hat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. I mean, to see like these sweet little doozers dressed up in like these amazing outfits was just such a treat. And then we also wanted to update, give them a little more color in their outfits. So the architect still has his vest, but Cotter King and Turbo and Wrench and a lot of the background doozers, we wanted to kind of give them just multicolored vests, just to brighten them up a little bit, because they pop a little bit more in 4K. Yeah. And also reflect what kids see. That's what kids see, right? That's what the local construction workers look like. So.
And on the original, the hands in particular, they were sculpted and cast out of latex, and then they had armatures. For this season, for the reboot, we did them all 3D printed them and put magnets so that we could sculpt different positions. So as they're filming, they can just pop on.
Do it to me. Take my arm. Yes. Show them.
no.
Look at that. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Boom. Can I hold the lunch bag? I can put the lunch bag on. That'd be fun. Is that over there? That is it. Look at that. Ow. Ow. Ah. There we go. Look at that. I'm ready for lunch.
What are you having for lunch?
What am I having?
Yeah, what are you
I'm
having?
having probably some radish pellets. They're big. And maybe a little bit of moss melon. And probably a steaming cup of radish juice.
Are you team radish or team strawberry?
Well, some radishes. Oh, it's tradition. Always tradition.
But even props like a flashlight, you could make it by hand, but in the computer it's much easier to make your channels to put your LEDs in, so we can light up.
What's sorcery?
Now it's lit up, and now Cotter King can be on a little adventure. And they would all have puppet rods, just like the Fraggles. They're just miniature size.
Yeah, oftentimes we'll use 2 puppeteers to bring these guys to life, or sometimes 3. So, for example, like with Architect, obviously I'd be over here doing the voice and the head motions and the body leans, and then oftentimes there'd be a second puppeteer holding him on a rod, making him kind of walk below camera, and occasionally there'd be another puppeteer with rods in the hands to be able to do big gestures, and then we could just wipe the rods out after we shoot so that they go away. So that's...
Doozer Magic, ask your questions. What questions do you have? Anybody? Silence.
Well, I wanted to share just something, Henson history. John's got his hands on these controllers, and he referred to them as Waldos, and that's something that really comes from Jim Henson. If you go back in time, right, everybody's most famous puppet, Kermit, is really one performer and one character, right? And we're really always we consider ourselves a character company much more than like a special effects company. We're really trying to always allow these brilliant puppeteers to be able to do what they do without tripping over a lot of technology and a lot of stuff in the way, right? So that's pure performance. So I always like to point out, so this like Waldo came from this idea of you know, how do you put as much control back into the puppeteer as you can? When you think of something like, if you're familiar with the Dark Crystal, there's amazing photos of like one Skeksis with like 9 guys underneath, and one of them is just eyebrow guy, and the other one is just like ear guy or girl. But they were, you know, really ultimately like each doing one thing. So Jim had this idea of, can we put all of those controls back into one thing? So the Waldo is sort of half of that. The other half is like a stick that we'll use where we can program in lots of different effects and things like that. And that performance control system, which we used on like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or dinosaurs, when we really want to do those big, fancy animatronics, we're using that bigger system. Something like Fraggles, one of the things I think is interesting is in some ways it's a very simple performance, and even these characters are so expressive, but their eyes don't blink.
What?
I'm just saying. You know, like
Every second I'm learning something more horrifying.
you know, but you get so much expression out of it. Like, and I think that some of the best puppets are that way. You know, people will always talk about like, you know, they love when Miss Piggy bats her eyelashes. She has, you know, eye blink in that puppet. It comes through in the performance. It comes through from the way that they're able to be really expressive. So again, I want to make sure you guys get a chance to get up close. Please feel free to take all your little pictures and all the things.
If you want to try this too,
Oh my
Yes.
god.
come on in and give it a try. It is like the best video game ever.